Hi, everyone. On behalf of Ann Duane, Ben Kaznoka, Lindsay, Sam, and the rest of the Village Global team, welcome to Transformers. We're so thrilled to see each and every one of you today. You are founders, you're builders, and you're visionaries, many of whom are tackling some of the most complex and high-stakes sectors out there. Now, if this is your first Village Global event, welcome. We're a network-native venture capital firm backed by some of the world's most successful founders. We're gonna kick things off with our good friend and fellow villager, Phaedra Ellis Lamkins, founder and CEO of Promise. Phaedra is scaling Promise at the intersection of government, technology, and financial health. And she's broken down institutional walls in order to build a category-defining company.
Oh, thank you.
We're also joined by her friend, Van Jones, who'll help us understand how power in government and in politics is not only helpful, but its own competitive advantage. So let's get started. Phaedra.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about Promise and what it does?
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to just say thank you to Village and both Amrit and Ben and Ann and Sheila. I feel really lucky that Village was one of our, as we said, OG investors and continues to be. I don't think you can, I'm supposed to be succinct, but kindness is, I just want to say kindness is underrated. Kindness and support, and the consistent kindness and support and ease from Village is such a gift. And so there's no stress, and I just think as a founder, to have investors where you have no stress is such an incredible gift. And so happy to be here, but just really wanted to say thank you, because it's like so lovely to just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna spend time with Village. So Promise is a company, focused, software company focused on how do you improve the experience of government? How do you make it more efficient? And we are really focused on basic needs for people. How do you get access to food, power, water, shelter? And so we basically run programs for mostly states so that people can get aid. And an example of that is where the state of Florida uses us is if you need emergency aid for electricity, we actually get your information because you've already applied for food stamps. We compare that against the data file of a energy company, and we send you a message that says you qualify for aid. Let us know if you don't want aid. If you apply in the state of California, where Promise is not, you will go online and call. They will have windows that they take applications. You will have to come in. You will bring a copy of your income, a copy of your utility bill. Damn. They'll then put it into a Salesforce system. And you'll wait somewhere between 6 weeks to 3 months.
Damn. Wow.
And so it's just recognizing inherently that technology can make the system better.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
And that wasn't always what Promise was.
No.
Tell us about your first idea and how you knew it was time for a left turn.
Yeah, so we started focusing on the criminal justice system, went through Y Combinator, raised some capital, and then I was pretty successful. We made money right away. And then I just was in a meeting in Alabama and sitting with folks. And it was like, some of you may be too young to remember Dukes of Hazzard, but it was like, I was in a meeting with like Boss Hogg, and he like leaned back and he was like bragging about keeping someone in a jail for 7 years on a pretrial arrest. And I just was like, oh, software at its best is about efficiency. And to be able to raise as much capital as we did, to be a Black woman, to have a good technology team, and to use that to build efficiency for a system that was criminalizing poor Black people, just was not what I wanted to do. And so I just was like, life is too short. So I walked out of the meeting. Thank God I had better skilled colleagues than myself. I just was like, and we just never went back.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was the initial customer discovery process for the version of Promise today?
One, we got lucky because of COVID.
Yeah.
Two, what happened is we realized that most people end up in the criminal justice system because of fees and fines. You can't afford something. You can't afford a parking ticket. We'd been sitting in Oakland County, Michigan, and a judge mentioned that the people that were the highest risk for failure to appear were people on a suspended driver's license. And so we are like, okay, that doesn't make sense, that the people who are most likely to be high risk are people who really can't afford a ticket, and they keep driving their kids to school, they keep going to work. And the system is not designed to be punitive. And at the same time, Max had just started a company called Affirm. And so I was like, well, if you're rich or middle class, you can go get a Peloton, you get it, and it's interest-free. But if you're poor and you can't afford a parking ticket and you need to go to work, you end up incarcerated. And so I just was like, the duality of that made me think we should try to do that. And the good thing about being a founder is you have a sense of confidence sometimes that does not make sense. We were talking about this. So I was like, I mean, if Max can do it, for sure we can do it. And so we just started offering people basically buy now, pay later for government. And we scraped the city of Oakland site without their permission, and just started paying tickets. And then we're like, oh, people pay us back at a really high rate. And if you make it easy, people actually don't want to go to jail, which at the time seemed shocking to people. Shocking.
So the customer has always been the end consumer as opposed to government in your eyes?
It's a great, no, absolutely not. The person who's the end user is what gives me the passion to do the work. The government is who pays us. And so sometimes even internally we have a tension because the team wants to measure success by how the individual end user uses it. But at the end of the day, governments pay us. And so we have to measure success by how well do we create an experience for governments that's cheaper, more efficient, and runs better. Because some of our clients don't care about the end user, right?
Yeah.
They do not, and they want less people to get aid. They actually like it being harder. And so for them, it's about efficiency and saving money.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And how do you manage the duality of the idealism of mission-driven work and the reality of capitalism?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one, it helps that I like money. And I would rather fly private than commercial. And so I realized that if I want to build generational wealth, which I think that we should do as women and people of color, it means that I'm purposefully using capitalism as a strategy for change. And so I want to win. And I also think that the challenge of a company that is mission driven, and for us, we don't take capital from social investors, social impact investors, because I wanted the company to be driven by venture capital returns. Like I purposely wanted people to be like, okay, you're not growing quickly enough. I didn't want to win in the battle of people who are like, oh, it's kind of cool, you're doing good work. And so Katie and Jacob are here, two of my colleagues. And I think the thing that we think about is if your product is good and you believe it serves the mission, then you measure success by revenue. And so to the extent, I think the more money we make, the more people we help. And so we have to run to revenue. And it excites me. And I like it. And I remind myself that we just did Kansas. We just did the state of Kansas last week. And if we don't exist, like 7,000 people just got aid. And if we don't exist, their lights get shut off.
Yeah.
And so every time we win a contract, every time we win something, we make it easier and more beautiful. And in this moment, we should be making the case for democracy and making the case for public institutions. And they're broken and they don't work. And so revenue is the way to measure success in a company. And I think we should push people. And I think it's a failure of mission-driven companies to see the mission. It's not really a company if the mission is met separate of revenue.
Hear, hear. And speaking of broken public institutions that presumably take forever to make decisions.
Yes.
How have you learned to shorten the decision-making window for these states and local governments that might otherwise be impenetrable?
Well, one, Godspeed to people who sell to local governments.
Okay, fair enough.
We started actually the criminal justice selling to counties. And what I realized is the cost of acquisition was too low for the dollar value. And that basically you needed to get so many local governments to equal revenue. Whereas like we just signed another contract with the state of Florida today. It's 1.6 million just to add to something else. So it's like, and it takes the same amount of work. And so I think the thing I think about is I fundamentally believe we are making the government better. Like I feel it, and we are willing to do things that other people don't. And I think a lot of GovTech, you start almost as like a consultancy where you just say like, however to get in. So I was like the state of Kansas, they came to us, and they're, the state of Washington is another example. They were like, they had a program for 2 years. They needed to get $160 million or 150. And they're like, we have to get it out in 90 days. And we're like, great, we'll get it out for you in 90 days. But we made $6 million, right? And so we get out something that we deeply believe in. We provide a high quality service to people who depend on those resources. We made good money. And so I do think that part of what we're good at is we meet people where they are in crisis, and then we over deliver. And that's our sweet spot, is crisis.
So it sounds like the secret sauce, if you will, is finding the customer when they're ready to transact, not shortening a long customer cycle.
Yeah, I definitely think we just signed the city of Atlanta, which is a smaller city, is a smaller jurisdiction, I think 2 weeks ago, I do think that sometimes those things take a long time. Like there are some things that, like we started the city of Atlanta when we first started, which is why it took 3 years or 2 years to close. And we didn't understand the crisis point. But I think for states, we definitely find people who uniquely need our services. And I will say we made a different decision as a company than traditional, I think a lot of software companies did. I came out of a company before that was kind of like in the Uber of everything, where you just like, we raised 20 million at seed. And so it was like you had so much money that you just grew. And so I purposely made a decision to build a company that we became profitable, that we had software margins. And so we only had 2 salespeople. We just hired our third, and our revenue was like 1, 5, 16, 34. So we just kept our revenue kept growing with 2 salespeople. And so now we have to scale the sales team and build the infrastructure and do that. But we can do it from a profitable company with high margins, which is just a different way to be able to build a company. Incredible.
And speaking of, most of our founders here are at the seed or even pre-seed stage, or many of them are. What advice, if you could take yourself back to the seed stage of Promise, what advice do you remember receiving that you massively underrated?
That I massively underrated. I think investors are really important. And they're like, someone said to think of them as like long-term relationships in the same way you would think about a spouse or something else. Because like when if you want to make a pivot, like when I called people, said we raised 7 million, I think it's seed, maybe 3, and then like a couple weeks later, it's a total of 7. And you're like, I think I'm going to quit what I'm doing. And I think I'm just going to give you your money back, which I thought was great. I was like, oh, we can give everyone their money back plus a little. You guys did great, less than a year. And to have investors that were like, we believe in you, go in the woods. And I just think like, find yourself. And I think for a lot of people, we don't grow up with those kind of experiences where you can fail and then someone rewards you and tells you, just hold our capital, we believe in you. And I think in founders who don't have that experience with investors, I think it's difficult. And so the thing I wish is we turned down terms that were better because we liked people. And I just cannot tell you that the best economic terms are sometimes not the best economic terms. Finding people who see you, because I think it's even now, the government is like shutting down social services. People are scared. I was like, oh, this is gonna be so great, Doge. And then they're basically like, oh, screw DEI. I was like, I thought we were government efficiency. And so to those kind of moments, like I don't manage our investors for any fear. I'm just like, oh, this is so great. We were supposed to do 40 this quarter. I think we did 4 or 5. And I was like, oh, this is like a building time. We're going to now do M&A, and we get to start figuring out all these other companies are going to die. We have a lot of capital in the bank. So it's like, there's no stress associated with managing an investor. It's about making the best decision for the company in the long term and positioning us for growth. And so I was like, oh, this is perfect because we've been in an execution challenge. We're growing more quickly than we can execute against. And so now I'm like, oh, this is our year to catch up. This is our code base can't be total shit. This is our we're gonna hire better engineers. We're gonna build a sales team that works a little different. And so it becomes an opportunity instead of like stress or panic. And I see a lot of people who are just like, oh, I gotta raise in this environment. And, oh, I gotta do this. And we're just like, so we're gonna do like planning about how to, and so I just think the investor relationship is very much undervalued. And that's why I was saying, to your guys' credit, we have not gone to the market ever. And we've raised 50 million, 30 of which still sits in the bank. And because I was like, I can't imagine having to deal with people who one of our investors is like, oh, we want you to raise more capital. And so like, go meet people. And I walk in and it's like 3 dudes golfing. And they're just like, oh, like, and I walk in and I was just like, if I had to work with these people, like it would not be good. And Ross gave me feedback because I was like, he's like, they said you were a jerk. I was like, yeah, I'm sure I was.
Phaedra, about Van, what's something you've learned from him over the years?
Oh my God, so much from Van. So Van is one of my dearest friends. I could probably just cry just thinking about how much I love him. The thing I think I've learned from Van is very few people have power and show emotion, especially as founders or people of color, women. And it was like the first time I'd ever seen someone like in a room cry. And we met when we were young, and I was just like, oh my God, it's so weak. Like, you need to like buck up, dude, buck up. And there's real power in authenticity and in like leaning into that power. And so I think the thing that I've learned from Van is that true power really comes from like your most authentic self. Like when you are just feeling yourself, when you are showing that. And I think, so it's been a real gift because I'm more of a robot than he is. And certainly don't engage with humans. And so he like will be like, and
that's great. Maybe just transitioning back and ask the same question. What have you learned from Phaedra?
Well, first, I'm just glad to be here. I'll say about Phaedra. Phaedra comes from a tough place. She's not a rich man's child. And a lot of the people who grew up where she grew up are not even alive to tell the tale. And a lot of people underestimate kids from tough places, assume they're less than. And even if they're not less than, that assumption of less than gets in them and holds them back. And somehow, she's been able to find a way to not only get out of desperate poverty, work with Prince, biggest investors in Silicon Valley, build a unicorn billion-dollar company, help poor workers, all this. And at the end of the day, what she's trying to do, she's trying to get back home to those people who don't have a daggum thing and didn't have anybody to help them, didn't have anybody to stand up for them. And she's doing that. She's actually doing that. And some people have had a theory that if you gave a different kind of person a real shot, they might do a different kind of thing. That maybe it's not capitalism that's the problem. Maybe it's just, you just don't have enough people to get a chance to play the game. And nobody's playing this game better than Phaedra. Nobody's helping more people before they get out of bed than Phaedra. And she's just getting started. She's a little bitty baby caterpillar.
Well, and here, very well put. Van, we have founders gathered here today who are working on some big businesses and some ambitious visions. And they're trying to sell into healthcare. They're trying to sell into fintech. They're trying to explain their crypto business to Washington policymakers. You are gifted in the art of narrative, storytelling, and communication. Let's start with your advice to entrepreneurs on how to tell their story. How can they communicate the audacity of their vision, the audacity of the technology to a customer base or to a government base of people who may not be as steeped in Silicon Valley as we are?
Well, first you gotta know who you are. I think that's a big part of the difference when you're dealing with political people. Political people are not the same as you guys. You guys are rational.
Speak for yourself.
Rational people. You're efficient. You're talking to the other people you went to high school with who were very different than that. People who are emotional, people who are relational. And the most important thing you want to manage, and also people who don't know anything about technology at all. You could say AI and you could say crypto and you could say, tell me the difference between the two. And they would say, oh, look, a bunny. Like they don't have literally any idea what you're talking about. And so you're trying to manage to be like the smartest person with this, on the bleeding edge of the bleeding edge. That's for later. On the front end, it's how do people feel? How are you making people feel about you? I was talking to Phaedra about this earlier. Maya Angelou says, no one will ever remember what you said. They will never forget how you made them feel. So you come in all smart, saying a bunch of stuff, but it's not the smart, it's the heart. And you get a chance to actually let that part of yourself show when you're dealing with the government. Now, you're talking to your VC, like they may not want to hear any of that stuff, but you have a different gear when you talk to people in government. And so I also think I want to acknowledge you guys in a way that I can tell you don't acknowledge yourselves. You are very important to me personally because of what you're trying to do. You are trying to do something very, very difficult. You are taking extraordinary risk to do it. And many of you are doing it for reasons that are embarrassingly noble. I have a 3-year-old daughter. Here's how I see you guys. A 3-year-old daughter. She's going to grow up in a different human civilization than the one I grew up in. Okay? Different human civilization because of technology. Her first crush 3, 4, 5 years from now is probably not going to be a rock star or a hip hop artist. It's probably going to be an AI. Her first crush is probably going to be an AI. Different human civilization. When she's 28, 30, 32, when she wants to have grandchildren for me, children for herself, she might open up a laptop or deal with a holographic interface and design my grandchildren with biotech tools. It's a different human civilization. 80, 90, 100 plus years from now when she dies, she may be buried on the moon or Mars because by then we'll be a fully spacefaring civilization. That's a different human civilization. Here's the question. Will this new human civilization be human and will it be civilized? Will it be human and will it be civilized? That will not be determined by people in Congress. It's going to be determined by people around this circle. You are not just co-founders of a company. You're co-founders of the next human civilization. And what you do matters. The choices that you make matters. Your courage matters. Your integrity matters. And the fact that it's difficult is a part of the process. And it takes incredible people like you to give my daughter the world that she deserves. And I'm here because I deeply, deeply respect what you're trying to do.
Well, and thank you for that. And that's itself stirring and inspiring, so really appreciate that. Just going back, Van, to the opening comment about narrative to government policymakers. Sure. We often tell founders, you need to have sort of a different pitch when you're talking to a prospective employee, when you're talking to a prospective investor, when you're talking to the mass media, so we need to have multiple pitches in our head at any one time, and you have to customize your message to the audience. Yeah. Let's suppose the audience are people in Washington who are trying to understand healthcare, climate, tech, fintech, crypto. What does this group need to know to be effective with that audience?
Even that don't work, what you just said. Because it's more about the relationship right? If you're coming in there thinking, what do I need to tell you so you can understand something, you're already in the wrong gear. Because first of all, they're not going to understand what you're saying anyway.
You can't dumb it down.
Sure, but people can tell if you're dumbing it down. People want to belong to something. That's what you got to understand. They want to be a part of something that's meaningful to them. They want to feel like they're solving a problem. They want to feel like they've got a friend and an ally in getting something important done. And that, establishing that is really important. And that's more relational. And so you remember what Phaedra Learned just said it. She says, look, she's trying to solve this, but she's talking to the person, they have some other problem. She's coming in, I'm going to be a friend to you, Governor. I'm going to be a friend to you. I'm going to help you get this done. And when you are, look, I've worked in the White House. A lot of people come in, they've talked to you and they're trying to get you to do stuff. And it's very clear they got an agenda. They're trying to move you. Somebody told them first say this and this say that. They're running their little script on you. And nobody's stupid. Everybody can tell what's going on. And if you can drop into your actual purpose and calling, why you built this company, the problem you're trying to solve, the people who you're concerned about, the outcomes you're trying to avoid, that person suddenly, as a government guy, now you're talking my language. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. I'm going to tell you that. In government, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. If they believe you are really going to eat broken glass to solve this problem, then the doors start to open up. And so I think it's very, very important that people think about that way.
Mm-hmm. And it is interesting just to riff on that for a sec. I think I strongly agree on the build a relationship point. I do think in like enterprise sales or in these long sales processes, some founders will take that approach to an extreme. They'll say, hey, let's just get to know each other. Where are you from? Okay. And the busy customer on the other side is sort of like, come on, I know there's an ask. Yes. There's a product you're trying to sell. Yeah. And so I think there is some balance between transactional and relational. Exactly.
And that sweet spot is the true authenticity.
Yeah.
The true authenticity is, I want you to buy my shit.
Right.
Okay? That's true. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not hiding the ball.
Yeah.
But it's not so much the what, but the deep why.
Yeah.
I want you to buy my shit because it's going to help this grandmama. It's going to save this mayor. It's going to, if you can get there sooner rather than later, now you've got a connection to somebody that you're mission aligned. Purpose matters, man. And I think that, maybe for other people that would be too soft or too weird, and you need to, what about the numbers and what about the tech? I'm telling you, with government people, it's a little bit different. Am I wrong, Phaedra?
No, I was going to say, the thing I think that you're so right about is and I might think about it, is I think for us, selling is really important, is to almost staff somebody, right? Which is once you say, okay, we now have connected as humans. And I think when people come to see us as government sellers, we have some that just went to OpenAI because they offered him so much damn money, but is when they were selling, he's like, I thought we would go in and we would pitch the company. And we're like, no, we're talking Mississippi. Our client is they're stressed. It feels chaotic. It feels like they're not going to get good services. So we walk in and we're like, how can we be of service to you? And then we don't worry about money in the first thing. We're just like, let's just be of service. And I think for some people, the way you sell is exactly, you build a relationship where someone's for you and you're for each other. And so we were like, hey, let's just experiment on Snap, which they shouldn't really let us, they should, of course, because this is recorded, but but I think because they have confidence that we will deliver, that the relationship translates into world-class delivery, that if the ability to be able to say, I see you, I get you, and I deeply care that you succeed, right? That's what I think it is. The
feeling of
the feeling of because we're so aligned, internally we talk about it in sales, it's we're so in staff. We want you to feel like we're never going to embarrass you. We're always going to make sure the product is good. Because I think a lot of people worry about startups that they have a nightmare of the election voting machines, where someone's there's a saying in government, no one gets fired for hiring Oracle. So when you're asking someone to hire someone that's not Oracle.
So that's the government version of no one gets fired for buying IBM.
Exactly.
In government, it's Oracle.
It's Oracle, right? So it's like, if someone's going to not hire Oracle, because these are not technologists, you have to make them believe you so deeply care, which I think is Van's point, which is so important, is because either, like for us, you're in crisis. Like the state of Florida, which was our largest client, made $8 million, I think, the first year. She was like, if I could have hired someone else, I would have hired anyone else. And so it's like, but I thought we didn't have a choice, and I knew you weren't going to embarrass us. And so I was like, that's it. She knew we like weren't going to embarrass her. We deeply cared. So I do think the relationship stuff is undervalued. And I think up until the last couple of years, it used to be like a dude who, in defense, it's very different. In defense, it is still like a guy who used to be in the colonel in the army, and then he walks out. But for human and social services and the traditional government folks, it very much is still, I think, relationship-based and staffing for us as a seller.
I will just make the quip that in the corrections, the novelist Jonathan Franzen said, some of the most inauthentic people are obsessed with authenticity. And that's what's so funny about these meta conversations is, like, I think your point's spot on, Van.
Yeah.
And if you get too clinical or analytic about it, I have to be authentic today.
Right.
I have to connect at the heart. That's actually worse, right? And so there's a sense in which you have to sort of lean into their natural self. Then on building movements and sort of shaping the conversation, we have builders here who are trying to really galvanize wide communities to get behind their vision. What have you learned in that work? And what's a non-obvious nugget or a regret you have or a mistake you see people make as they try to, you've done so much, say, in criminal justice reform. One observation I have from your career is, like, you've built movements going across the aisle and connecting with people with whom you disagree on 9 out of 10 things, but you find that one sliver of agreement and you build around that. I find that so inspiring. That would be like one takeaway I've had. What else can you share about what you've learned doing that?
Well, I mean, he's talking about the fact that even though I was an Obama guy, when Trump went in, I made a decision that because Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner's father, had gone to prison. So Jared really understood how messed up our federal prisons were. And we got connected, and he said he wanted to do something about the federal prison system. This is a tough call for me because, I'm an Obama guy, works at CNN. If I'm going to walk across the street, like CNN's over here shooting at the White House, and the White House is over there shooting at CNN. If I'm going to walk across that no man's land and shake hands with Jared Kushner, that's going to seem weird to people. But I also knew that he meant it. He really was wanting to do something. He saw his dad go through something. He wanted to do something. So I just adopted I adapted Jay-Z. Phaedra and I are friends with a guy named Jay-Z. I said, well, Jared, with you, I got 99 problems, but prisons ain't one. So, and
I just imagine Jay's face when you say that.
I'm not as cool as Jay-Z.
No, I know. That's
Exactly. So, we work together. What was the principle there? The principle is, what's my why? See, my why, and this is important, so I say, you can't fake the authenticity. You got to know your why. My why is I'm a person of very deep faith. And in my faith, I'm a Christian. Jesus says he's going to judge us by how we treat the least of these. The least of these. The addicted, the convicted, the afflicted, the evicted, the poorly depicted. Mm-hmm. Folks that don't have anything. Now, there's 200,000 people in federal prison who fit that description. In order for me not to make my friends upset, am I going to abandon them? See, so you got to know your why. My why is to do something to make their lives better. And when you have a deep why, you'll walk across broken glass for it. So there's nothing inauthentic about me working with Jared Kushner because my why is that deep. Number one. Number two, something that kind of goes maybe unobserved. It's obvious why I work with Jared Kushner. He's in the White House. Why would Jared work with me? I'm not in the White House. I'm not in government. I'm some weird dude on a cable news network he don't like. You got to think about this now. You guys underestimate the importance of something called attention. attention. The most scarce resource in the world is not money, it's not smart technology people, it's time. The richest people I know are still time poor. Nobody has enough time. What is a brand? What is fame? It's a hack for time. If I told you I have a friend and she's pretty beautiful and she's got 4 kids and she's got divorced, blah, 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 it's gonna take me a long time to explain it. If I say I know Kim Kardashian.
Wait, I would just say, I'm so sorry, I know, Ben, this is my one thing. Uh-huh. Van was working with Kim Kardashian, and then it was in the Daily Mail, Van is dating Kim Kardashian. And I remember my aunt.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
No comment.
And my aunt kept calling me and being like, Van is dating Kim. And I was like, I talk to him every day. I'm sure it's not happening. And Van was like, who am I to deny it? Like, who am I to deny it? And it was like the cutest thing. And it was like, so people aren't always so excited when your friends are a bunch of nerds. But when it was like Van is dating, and they had a picture of you and Kim, and I just was like,
So why did Kim and I not stop this rumor? Because, right?
We know why you didn't stop.
Exactly. Yes, brother. But it part of the reason that we didn't stop the rumor, and part of the reason I think her staff started the rumor, is right? Is because it got us attention. Suddenly, people who didn't know anything about criminal justice and didn't care, including all your relatives,
all my relatives,
are talking about this alleged love affair between Van Jones and Kim Kardashian, and how do we meet because of criminal justice reform? And so all the stories talk about criminal justice reform. Now you say to yourself, I am not going to spread a false rumor about myself and some TV star. That's not my point. My point is fame, brand is a hack for time. If you walk into the room and they've already heard of you, if you walk into the room, they've already heard about your product, you're winning before anything else happens. And what I see a lot with you guys is you're so focused on making sure the product is great, and from a technical point of view that you're out competing your peers, you forget nobody's ever heard of you. Okay? And so it's a big mountain to climb when you're trying to make these sales. Wouldn't it be wonderful if when you walk in the door, they've already heard of you and they feel great about you? Now, you say, I don't have time for all that stuff. I'm not asking for you to make it your profession, but I am saying that we did one thing with Phaedra, and we had to beg, and we were kicking and screaming and crying, and she finally allowed a reporter to talk to her. Like, now you would think that given her backstory and given all that she's accomplished, that she would love talking to reporters. But when she worked with Prince, it was a whole big mess, and she just said, screw all reporters. And so she had the best kept secret in Silicon Valley that a poor black kid is out here building a unicorn and eating up the world, and nobody knew about it. So she talks to a reporter, one reporter. They put her on the cover of Forbes or whatever it was. And now suddenly, even someone like a Phaedra gets a benefit now when it comes to recruitment, all this sort of stuff, from literally one story. And so I just cannot underestimate for you the importance of letting people know your story and having somebody on your team who's passionate about that. Because then it gets to the last point I want to make on this, which is now I get to belong to something. When I hear Phaedra's story is the story of humanity. Everybody believes in the little David who can somehow beat Goliath. Everybody wants to hear that heroic journey and the return home. She came from someplace and did something powerful, and now she's coming home to make it better for others. It's the most beautiful story ever told. So now when I'm working with Phaedra, I'm a part of something. I'm a part of something beautiful. I'm a part of something. Now, all of us don't have a story that extreme, but everybody's got a story. And if people want to be a part of your story, a part of your journey, that helps a lot in government. Because now when I'm at the water cooler, when I'm at the committee, when I'm behind the thing, I can say, no. This brother, He came from here. He did this. Oh, no, this sister, her dad went through this. And that's why she's, oh, okay. Now I can buy into something. I can believe in something. I can belong to something. All of these things are irrational. They're inefficient, but they're powerful.
Yeah, and strong plus one. And is anyone here on the masterclass we did with Abhay from Typeface AI? We can send a link around because we recorded it. But one of Abhay's points, he's built this unicorn AI, generative AI company, and he said, all these AI entrepreneurs are making the mistake that they think customers just buy the best product. But there's so much anxiety inside organizations right now. They're looking to buy from the person, the founder, the CEO, who can be their trusted counselor and advisor and help them navigate. They'd rather buy the number 2 product with a trusted counselor than the number 1 product where they don't understand the principles behind it. So that's great. And also,
listen, we could walk out here right now. He just said what I was trying to say the whole time. A lot more efficiently.
It's a really great takeaway, and everyone in the Village team knows that when we meet founders, our first question when a pitch meeting is, what's the founding story of your business? It is amazing how many entrepreneurs don't have a killer crisp answer to what is the founding story, but we all should have that. So I think that is one takeaway from this session. Fantastic insights. Sheila.
That was amazing. Let's just do a round of applause.